Good afternoon, royals. Good afternoon, kings and queens of the land. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to Burkina Faso, the liberated zone, one of the liberated zones in Africa, under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore. It's very important that we acknowledge these liberated zones so that more and more people get to be aware about the fact that Africa is rising and fighting against apartheid and against slavery, those evil. Good afternoon to President uh, Abdurrahman in Niger, who have liberated Niger using the forces of the people, using the army of the people liberated from the French colony. Good evening. Good after liberated Mali using the barrel of the gun, the weapons that the apartheid or colonialism trust so much. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mgonim Konto, and this is the Royal Opinion. Let me start my conversation because today I want to talk about the last message of the last apartheid leader, or the so-called last apartheid leader, but he was not last because actually just the change of the skin color. Apartheid remained in place up to today. Apartheid is still in place. So I'm just saying the last apartheid, the last message from the last apartheid leader, FW de Klerk. That's what I'm talking about today. But I'm going to touch on several issues. First, I want to talk about Julius Malema. Most of the time, we are very harsh. I think I am guilty of being harsh sometimes on the CIC. While the CIC has gone through quite a lot of issues in his life, we should be considerate when we deal with people like him, such people. I want to congratulate him for realizing that fighting the MK party will not serve his purpose. He has now found something very progressive to do, something that will actually help his popularity, something that will help his popularity. This I agree with him fully that this will actually assist him. This is a step in the right direction. We most of the time when I talk about the CIC, we forget the traumas. Before I share, let me talk about. We forget the trauma the CIC has went through as a young child. The CIC is part of what went wrong in South Africa. It's actually part of is a product. Let me not say he is part because he did not create the situation. He is a product of what went wrong in South Africa. What went wrong in South Africa is the family structure has been dismantled. The family structure of the black man has been dismantled strategically by the white system. Julius Malema comes from a family. His grandmother had 9 children, and 8 of them were women. Uh, he says only 2 of them were married, and the rest were staying at home. Were at home, and with a lot of children. This is a serious problem because uh, any household without a father result in very bad outcomes. So CIC is one of the success of the being raised by a single mother. CIC is one of the success of being raised by women. I would say. So the trauma that he went through, he does not even know his father. So that's a very traumatic experience. We should be at least kind to him. And I think this time around, he's done so well. I want to congratulate him. Let me show just a little bit because this is not what I want to dwell in. I just want to show the new fight.
Nami ngindoda.
Aye, I'm in charge.
Moranzi wa ka ke batla re be Mr and Mr.
Ona moranzi wa ka ka Sepedi ke moratiwa wa ka. Moranzi wa ka ke Sependa.
Oh,
You must get someone who's paid, you will know it because it's sexually transmitted language.
seriously? So you born ukuthi
Not me, man. Aye.
even the weather is changing now. I think like it's either my place or your place.
Yeah. You know my place, things are happening there. It's too much. Yeah.
So my place or your place?
Nah. None of the two. Office.
Why?
Viewer discretion is advised. This episode may contain strong language and discussions of a
Like that.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. So you're in Parliament, and just hello.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Yo,
Mr.
wow. Yo,
President.
how are you?
My name is Temba. I'm going to be a waiter for today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anything to drink?
Still water.
So what's that? I don't see Julius Malema on the menu. Why?
It's going to be there.
It's gonna be there.
Next
Ningangenzele.
time when you come.
Okay.
Yes.
I will have. It's my first time at math.
Okay.
Apparently, like good luck.
Super. No?
Amazing. What are you gonna have?
Okay, let me not waste too much of your time. I just wanted to congratulate the CIC for realizing that insulting President Zuma will not assist his popularity. What can assist his popularity is actually what he is doing at the moment, talking to other kids who may have suffered the same traumatic experience, because this is very traumatic. Talking to other children. Uh, so I just wanted to congratulate him um, for realizing that actually insulting and fighting against the MK party and fighting against President Zuma is not going to assist. So I want to talk about Mr. F.W. de Klerk. Before I talk about F.W. de Klerk, today Janusz Walus, the guy who murdered in cold blood. uh, Chris Hani has been set free to go home by the South African government. He was initially sentenced to death by the apartheid government. Later on, his sentence was converted to life sentence. And after, uh, during now, the Ramaphosa government, he was given a parole. After spending 30 years in prison, the guy who killed Chris Hani, up to today, he has never explained who sent him to kill Chris Hani. He has never explained what was the purpose of killing Chris Hani. But obviously, black people in South Africa knows the reason Chris Hani was killed. Mandela gave a different reason, which is amazing. Mandela said the reason Chris Hani was killed was to spark uh, a racial war, which I dispute. I don't agree with that issue. It was not to start a racial war. It was to eliminate people who are going to give the apartheid government problems in the future. It was to eliminate political opponents who were going to challenge the status quo, because Chris Hani was challenging the issue of the land, the issue that Mandela agreed to, that he said um, the issue of the land in the said clauses, that the issue of the land will not be discussed. President Mandela, having agreed that the issue of land cannot be discussed, Chris Hani was one of his opponent, the person who was refusing to agree with him in that regard. He said, what was the reason we went to war in the first place? What was the reason we became soldiers? The reason we became soldiers was for the land. If we say we're not going to negotiate the land, what are we negotiating? So Chris Hani was murdered by basically the apartheid government to ensure that their um, post apartheid operations cannot be disturbed by Chris Hani, who was a radical element in the ANC, in the SACP. Uh, they've done so. I mean, Janusz Walus, it is even said that Janusz Walus had an allowance when he was in prison. He had a salary allowance in prison. He was taken care of by the government of South Africa. So it's clearly that the apartheid government and the current ANC government, which is there, obviously made up of the apartheid spies, cooperated to release Janusz Walus from prison, because both of them are aware what happened to Chris Hani. They are aware of who killed Chris Hani. But because the apartheid government does not value the life of black people, obviously black people in South Africa would not agree that Janusz Walus be released. But the Constitutional Court have reached the conclusion that Janusz Walus should be released. He is released, and the only thing that I would rather want to ask from President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma, I want to put a request to President Jacob Zuma that if uh, Chris Hani was alive and President Zuma was the one who was murdered, Chris Hani was going to fight to topple the apartheid government on behalf of President Zuma. So I want to call on President Zuma to remove the apartheid government from power, to remove the witches who came from Europe to come and occupy our land from power, to remove the killers and reveal, get to the conclusion of who murdered Chris Hani. And the people who murdered Chris Hani or who cooperated in the murder of Chris Hani should be brought to book at the end of the day. President Zuma, I appeal to you that please uh, ensure that Chris Hani wife find justice, take over the apartheid government, topple it, remove all the apartheid spies, take over the ANC, ensure that Chris Hani does have justice at the end of the day. Because this is what Chris Hani was going to do if the apartheid government had decided to murder you instead of him. That out of the way, uh, and I trust in President Jacob Zuma to do just that. Another issue happening in South Africa, the court in Cape Town have found in favor of the people who were expelled from the MK party, who were expelled from parliament. The court, the Western Cape High Court, found in their favor. They wanted to be reinstated as parliamentarian. The court has found in their favor. They have declared that the people who were removed by the MK party as MPs should be reinstated. Shocking, rather, on to say the least, highly shocking, because I mean, how can a court order an organization to uh, what is the English word? To deploy. I wanted to use that English word. How can a court order an organization to deploy somebody? How can, if the organization says this one will not be able to push our policies in parliament, he will not be able to represent us, then we remove him. How can a court order otherwise? How can a court order that such things should actually be done? How can a court says the people who are against, the people um, who have been removed by the organization because the organization does not trust that the people will be able to deliver on its mandate? How can a court force the organization to uh, uh, take the people back into its ranks? President Zuma, again, please come and rescue South Africa, come and overhaul the courts, because this is nonsensical. I mean, it's illogical. There's no logic, there's no sense in what these courts have found. Creating chaos in the MK party, because now if they don't allow those MPs back to parliament, it means they don't respect the court orders. So they got creating chaos inside the MK party. If President Zuma can go and appeal his expulsion in the ANC, the courts will not be able to find in his favor. They will not allow him to be in the ANC because they want the ANC to be pure, to be white. So President Zuma, please come rescue South Africa, remove all the apartheid laws, remove the courts, overhaul them, so that we can have sense in the courts. This is what is happening at the moment. It's something that cannot be, that will not be no longer tolerated. It will be no longer tolerated. The MK members will no longer tolerate the courts to dictate, and President Zuma will no longer tolerate the courts to dictate to him whom he should deploy to parliament, whom he should deploy in his organization, because also in Mpumalanga, they have removed the convener of Mpumalanga, who is being deployed by President Zuma, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and have installed their own, the court have installed their own person. Mary Party is the court deployment to the MK party. The court says she must be deployed in Pumalanga to work for the MK party. How can that make sense in any world, in any part of the world? So the court is forcing President Zuma and the MK party to work with the people that they cannot trust to carry their mandate. The court forces the apartheid spies into the MK ranks, um, as it were. Let me move away from that. I just wanted to remark and call on President Zuma to come and assist black people. Let me add this message from the last apartheid leader. What did he command it?
Address to the people of South Africa. To my dear wife and family, I will say goodbye in a different way. Our country faces so many challenges of a serious nature. I hold firm opinions about all of them, but decided to keep this message very short and only really focus on two issues, touching me and touching the country. Before I do so, I would like to thank all my friends and supporters for the wonderful support and encouragement they gave me throughout my life and throughout my political career. Many of them were close to me, even for decades. Others intervened occasionally. I thank you for your support and your trust in me. I thank you for your friendship. Thank you for having carried me on your shoulders for so many years. The first issue I want to focus on is apartheid and me. I'm still often accused by critics that I in some way or another continue to justify apartheid or separate development, as we later prefer to call it. It is true that in my younger years, I defended separate development, as I never liked the word apartheid. I did so when I was a member of parliament, and I did so as I became a member of cabinet. Afterwards, on many occasions, I apologized for the pain and the indignity that apartheid has brought to persons of color in South Africa. Many believed me, but others didn't. Therefore, let me today, in this last message, repeat. I, without qualification, apologize for the pain and the hurt and the indignity and the damage that apartheid has done to black, brown, and Indians in South Africa. I do so not only in my capacity as the former leader of the National Party, as an individual. Allow me in this last message to share with you the fact that since the early, my views changed completely. It was as if I had a conversion.
Damascus.
And in my heart of hearts, realized that apartheid was wrong. I realized
Damascus.
that we had arrived at a place which was morally unjustifiable. My conversion, to which I refer, didn't end with the admission to myself of the total unacceptability of apartheid. It motivated us in the National Party to take the initiatives we took from the time that I became leader of the National Party, and more specifically during my presidency. We did not only admit the wrongness of apartheid, we took far-reaching measures to ensure negotiations and a new dispensation which could bring justice to all. This brings me to the second issue I want to focus on. Together with most other South Africans, I'm proud of our Constitution. The Constitution which we hammered out in the negotiations which started in 1990 and which culminated in the final Constitution of 1996. I fully associate myself with the values and principles enshrined in our Constitution. And I'm deeply concerned about the undermining of many aspects of the Constitution, which we perceive almost day to day. It is my plea that the government, all parties, civil society, and all South Africans should once again embrace the Constitution and interpret it in the balanced way which the Constitution demands. We need to align the principles of non-racialism and non-discrimination with the need to deal with the past and issues like affirmative action. We need to guard over the independence and the impartiality of our courts. We need to promote economic growth and job creation by basing economic policies on the principles contained in the Constitution and not on ideologies which militate against the Constitution. We need to make the Constitution the cornerstone of the new society we are building. The road forward is a difficult one. But I firmly believe that if we take hands, and if all the reasonable people in South Africa put their heads together, we can overcome the challenges we face, and we can fulfill the tremendous potential that South Africa has.
That was the last message from FW de Klerk, who was the president of South Africa in 1990, when the transition happened from 1989. De Klerk took over, I think, in 1989, and from 1989 he was the president, and then somehow he says he had the Damascus experience, which somehow gave him a new message to say that black people are now okay. Uh, we need to start working together with black people. Uh, Out of that Damascus experience, he says he has been convicted into loving black people and loving fairness. That's what the apartheid leader says. But what he says is they should not, South Africa should stick to the constitution that he has hammered in when the transition happened. He says nobody should change what he actually did in South Africa by ushering in the apartheid constitution that is given to black people in South Africa. The constitution that has been praised by the white system all over the world, saying is the best constitution uh, in the world. But in South Africa, black people are still suffering under apartheid, are still suffering under colonialism, are still suffering big pain under the leadership of white people. The apartheid leader giving the last message that he wants black people to stick to the constitution, but saying he has had a Damascus experience. He has had a Damascus experience where he was convicted into hating black people, into starting to love black people, and realizing all of a sudden that apartheid and the murders that he committed on black people was wrong. And he decided to apologize, but says uh, there should not be anything done to repair the damage which they did, but he apologized for the damage. We should just move on because he has apologized. Nothing else is needed from him, uh, uh, according to what he's saying or what he's thinking. Nothing more is needed from the white South Africans. It was only his apology and telling us that he has had a Damascus experience. De Klerk has handed over South Africa to the current uh, administration. De Klerk has predicted that the ANC is going to split. He has not predicted. De Klerk has planned the ANC split because he said the ANC getting 69% of the vote was a dangerous scenario. He wanted to split the vote of the ANC, and he said it will split. He said unequivocal, unequivocal, what, what is the English word? He says definitely. I remember the word. It's just that I can't. My English is failing me at the moment. Unequivocally. Yeah, I wanted to say Unequivocal. The Klerk has mentioned unequivocally that he wanted black people to continue suffering, and de Klerk has handed over to his apartheid spies, because these people who are leading the ANC at the moment are the ones who have been who were handled by de Klerk and other white people during apartheid. Most of the people who are now leading the ANC, most of the people who are now occupying positions in government are the spies who've been handled by FW de Klerk. So there's apartheid spies who pretended to be on the side of black people have now taken over the government. They have released Janusz Walus. Janusz Walus, who killed Hani, is going home to have a hero's welcome. He's done quite a successful project in South Africa, eliminating the biggest enemy of apartheid and ensuring that the project of liberating black people takes a very difficult position, is taken back by 1,000 steps, millions of steps, not even 1,000. So the plan was to reduce the ANC majority to between 35 and 40% in the 2024 elections. This was planned by de Klerk himself. So taking the ANC to that majority and ensuring that they also capture the opposition. They want to capture the ANC like they've done now, combining the ANC and the Democratic Alliance to govern the country, meaning bringing white people to govern the country, bringing back de Klerk and his views to govern the country, Ramaphosa being a proxy of the white people just seated there as a proxy of white people. So people like Ramaphosa are just proxies for the de Klerks, for the apartheid government. The people who are still in control are actually white people who are now governing, who have been given the country, who have been given by the ANC, by the combination of the ANC. So the purpose was to create a government, a super government, which will be pro-white, and to create a super opposition in the form of EFF, which will look like it's against the government, because they took it like um, when they combined the ANC and the Democratic Alliance, most people were ordinarily going to move to the EFF. And when people move from the MK party to the EFF, then South Africa would become a two-party state, the EFF and the Democratic Alliance, meaning the EFF representing white people and the Democratic Alliance representing white people, because the EFF has already been captured. Julius Malema is already captured by white people. So they wanted to create a super opposition, but a very strategic opposition, whom even when he wins and take over as government, there will not be any changes, because they still have control over such kind of government. So whether you go to the ANC or you stick to the ANC with the DA or you move to the EFF, is still the same organization, it's still the same two opposite sides of the same coin. That was the plan of Helen Zille, apartheid government, and de Klerk until President Zuma decided to disturb the plan. That's why they wanted to remove President Zuma in the first place, because he knew a lot about this plan. That's why they wanted to hammer him using the State Capture Commission. That's why they wanted to take him to prison using the State Capture Commission, which they failed to do. So President Zuma coming up to rescue South Africa by forming the MK party, which was not part of the plan of the apartheid government in Helen Zille. What was part of the plan is the EFF. The EFF was part of the plan of the ruling elite who are going to take over South Africa when the ANC merged with the Democratic Alliance. If it wasn't for the MK party, the Democratic Alliance was gonna rule, and the EFF was gonna be given power in some years to come. Uh, while black people will be thinking that this is a change, it would be meaningless. It would be nothing if President Zuma did not come out to rescue black people uh, from or to rescue the ANC. If he did not do that, it was over with black people in South Africa. It was over. The plan was working perfectly. There was no problem until the appearance of the MK party and President Zuma. That's where all the plan started to fall apart. Even now, the plan is falling apart. They don't know what to do with the MK party. That's why there's all these uh, court rulings against the MK party to cause confusion inside the MK party. So I just wanted to talk about some of these issues. One of the issues which is currently in the news, which I just want to the issue of President Ramaphosa saying the Nigerians are going to have free entry into South Africa. They will not be required to have passports, according to President Ramaphosa. Though he came out, Ronald Lamola, the Minister of International Relations, who is actually uh, part of the plan of the GNU, who's going to contest in the future for the leadership of the ANC, came out to protect uh, President Ramaphosa, because there has been a lot of backlash from black people, from the internet, from the social media. There has been a lot of backlash because of that announcement. Backlash comes first, I think Ramaphosa is not being genuine. It's not about the movement of people from one country. It's not about allowing Africans to work together. It's not genuine. If it was about allowing black people free movement, he was going to start by allowing the Basotho people to come in and out of South Africa freely, because they are inside South Africa. He was going to allow the Swazi people, the Swati people, to come in and out of South Africa without passports, because those ones are already inside South Africa. So he was gonna concentrate on regional um, collaboration than go South Africa, which wants to operate freely in Nigeria, in South Africa. That's why he made that announcement. Is always about saving the white people. Ramaphosa says we should stop calling white people monopoly capital. We should stop calling them names and allow them to assist us. That's what and that's what he believes in. Those are the issues that I wanted to share. Ladies and gentlemen, click the like button and subscribe. You're coming time, body, for joining. This will be the end of our live stream.